1991. 7 forced fumbles.
That's why, like when I asked Terrell, who's the best linebackers? I don't know if I've ever heard Broderick Thomas come out of Terrell's mouth. It's always same guys, Jay Foreman, Levant David,
Barrett Root.
But again, if you don't watch the tape, you don't know how good they were.
I think it's just vapor.
Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
There's really not even that much nicotine in them, right?
One vape pod has as much nicotine as 1 pack of cigarettes.
My kid
knows it's dangerous.
5.4 million American kids vape, and most think it's harmless. Get your head out of the cloud. Talk to your kid about vaping. Visit talkaboutvaping.org. That's talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Serve Nebraska believes that volunteers are part of what makes Nebraska great. Each year, the Step Forward Awards honors volunteers from across the state who serve their communities in outstanding ways. We hope you'll join us this year at the Step Forward Awards luncheon on October 27th in Omaha. Help us thank volunteers with a celebration to remember. To register, visit serve.nebraska.gov and click Register Now. We hope to see you there. Paid for by Serve Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
How was your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
I think it's just vapor.
Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
There's really not even that much nicotine in them, right?
One vape pod has as much nicotine as 1 pack of cigarettes.
My kid
knows it's dangerous.
5.4 million American kids vape, and most think it's harmless. Get your head out of the cloud. Talk to your kid about vaping. Visit talkaboutvaping.org. That's talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
As an 18-year-old, I let my mistakes kind of take over my life. I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it.
10 years later, at age 28, Jackie finished her high school diploma.
When I found out that I was pregnant, I know that I had to do something for myself if I wanted to make her a better person and provide a better life for her. My family never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew what I could become and who I could become as a person. My support team is amazing. The educational director, my sister, and even my 7-year-old daughter has just been more than the support that I could ask for. I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. The home of Kansas City Royals baseball. KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. Live from the heart of Lincoln, America. Welcome to Ticket Weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
What up? Good morning on a Sunday. It's Inside the Huddle with Jay Foreman. Early. Me and my man Harrison, waking you up on this glorious Sunday. I want to wish all the fathers out there happy Father's Day. Not only, obviously, I guess birth parents, mentors, uncles. Hey, sometimes it's aunts and some of the moms got to pull the, double duty. But, it's a sometimes a thankless job, but it's everybody that signed up for it and embraces it. Hope you enjoy your day, whatever you like to do. I will say this, a lot of fathers don't like to do a dang thing, Harrison. You know what I mean? We want to just chill, and then we end up don't liking to chill because we always feel like we got to have something to do. Some do more than others, whether we're just sometimes, one thing, Harrison, is funny about Father's Day, and it kind of boils into, I guess, me as an athlete is you like, one of the best things is to act like you're doing something. Mm-hmm. Somebody, my daughters be like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm gonna go clean the garage." I sweep one little thing, don't do anything, right? Just want to wear my father badge one time, so they like, "Oh, Dad's cleaning the the garage or doing something, knowing dang well it's the same thing. It's the same way, it looks the same way, or same thing, it looks the same way that it did before. But again, I want to wish everybody happy Father's Day out there. Every day is a Father's Day that you're able to kind of be a part of somebody's life. And sometimes you could just, be a father figure to, kids you don't even know that look at you like that. Two examples is one of my favorite coaches was a guy named Walt West. He was my basketball coach in middle school and high school. He bestowed a lot of confidence in me. Had some, it was when I moved to Minnesota a couple years after, went over there, transferred schools, or kind of the city lines changed. So I went to another school. And he, brought me, Kenny, Jamal, Kendrick, all of us, we kind of ran tight together, and it was like, and he was from, inner city New York. He took us down to Minneapolis and dropped us off. It was like, you guys need to learn how to play on the blacktop and get tough. And he had a really big influence on me from a basketball standpoint, gave me a lot of confidence, and then also us a lot of confidence where we were able to go off in our individual sports and do well. But Walt is, to this day, I'm still talking about him. He's obviously not with us anymore, but again, he was some sort of a father figure. And then obviously my dad, goes without saying, a huge influence. But the other one is my uncle, I call him Uncle Butch, but he's named after my grandfather, Francis Foreman. I'll call him Big Hughes. That's his middle name, Houston. But he was my dad was always like, I wouldn't say they're like the bad dad, but Uncle Butch would always be able to deliver the good deliver the message that my dad wanted to get through to me. Because for some reason, having pretty much should be a Hall of Fame dad in the football realm. He has his high school field named after him, obviously in their Hall of Fame, obviously in the University of Miami, the Vikings as well, and hopefully the NFL will be the cherry on top. But when he was talking to me about football when I was about 15 to, we had some really good talks when I got into college, but 15 to 18, he didn't know anything. So then my uncle would probably, pick up the phone and deliver the message. I mean, just think about that, right? It was just the fact that regardless of how great my dad was and a tremendous mentor and confidant, that sometimes I'd be like, man, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? But I heard him and listened to him. Just at that point, I ain't want to hear it, And so my Uncle Butch and my Uncle Grease, rest in peace, were great for me. And I always say this: it takes a village, and celebrate the fathers. But it's Inside the Huddle with Jay Foreman. We do have some pretty cool news on a personal note. We'll have a sponsor, which we appreciate. We'll have a sponsor update next week. We just got that done. We'll be running live reads. So if anybody's listening, wants some sponsorship opportunities, we definitely appreciate it. As well, moving forward, we got a couple other things coming down the pipe. But big Husker news on multitude of sports. This is a good week for Huskers, Husker sports. And if you haven't heard, if you've been living under a rock, which I don't know how you could, there's a lot going on sports-wise anyways. You got the U.S. Open and all that other stuff. But in Husker sports, you got two huge on the women's side. Jordy Nelson coming back, being on the staff, or Jordan Larson. Sorry, excuse me. I was just thinking about Packers, and so I was thinking about Jordy Nelson.
I got you. You're good.
Jordan Larson coming back and joining the Husker volleyball staff. Obviously, just was playing like last year professionally, coming back, joining the staff, helping Nebraska, I think, with the talent that they've had the last couple of years, even though, in my opinion, the young talent, but from the mental aspect, be an extension of John Cook, but then also bringing, if there ever was a, Hall of Fame for volleyball players, she's it, right? I mean, you got to think in Olympics, who do they go to win it? Who does Nebraska go to? So I think that addition, along with the star power, cachet, and she's a great representation for Husker volleyball. That's a big, I mean, I'm sure it's been happening before, but officially be official, it's big. And I think it's also letting you know that John Cook is thinking outside of the box, but doing it the right way, right? Where you're bringing her on staff. She's going to obviously be tremendous in helping recruiting. Just imagine being a young lady and parents coming in there and you see, her pictures everywhere and you hear about her, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're it's just like football, for volleyball, who the great players are. You know who was really good at said university when you go visit or when you're playing in these circuits. And then you go into the office, and whether she's sitting next to John Coker in her office, she's telling you that she's going to pass along some of the things to your daughter to help her reach her maximum potential. So I think that's huge. And then obviously in the softball, I think, I don't know if you've ever went to a Nebraska softball game.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's exciting. I think it's more it's close, so it's more like you're in there with them because the field's a little bit smaller, but you're really close to the dugout.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of see the emotions where, obviously baseball parks are extremely bigger, but it's a fast moving game, a lot of action. And it's funny, you see Jordy Ball win another national championship, essentially the best player in softball, and has the mental wherewithal, number one, to complete the mission, right?
Yeah.
Went through kind of like, for her, a little low where you have like, what'd you do? Give up one run to Baylor or lose one game to Baylor. Ends up just, running the table, which a lot of pressure is there because, you are the best. You've been the best in the whole nation probably since you've been a freshman in high school, or one of them. And then to win back-to-back national championships at the University of Oklahoma, which is the equivalent of Georgia, Alabama in the football realm.
It feels like we're plucking one of Georgia's quarterbacks.
Right.
Like,
Well, it is. Well, you just got we'll talk about the Elite 11 with Daniel Kalen. You got the Dylan Raiola, and it hit, Oklahoma did. And then, whether she's homesick or feels like, she wants to add to her legacy, that's a big decision. And, whatever, she'll probably express her reasons, or find out reasons, and that's what she, give her the time. But I'm thinking about it. I always talk about these local high school athletes. Think about your legacy, right? There's nothing wrong with going out and broadening your horizons. But then also, if it comes down to 50-50, think about after football, volleyball, softball. I think that might have came into it where she wants to be a figurehead, a big stake in softball, period. Not just at Nebraska, but the landscape. You go win 2 national championships. You are the best, and you did everything from coming around on the run, I think in the semifinal game, and then obviously shutting the door in the championship game or in the first game of the championship series. Then the final out. Then you decide to very shortly, probably within 24 hours, in which obviously was a conversation I already probably had within her, family. And, something Nebraska did a good job of kind of keeping it on the down low, considering how many leaks sometimes. It would be hard for me to keep my mouth shut, right? If me and you coming in here and I'm the softball coach, and you'd be like, well, why is Jay so giddy? We got to, but the comeback, I think when you're thinking about it, right, she's going to perform.
Yeah.
She's going to dictate the pace of any game. So she's going to perform. That's always going to be there. She's going to work hard, and I think she's going to bring some of the culture aspects, expectations, and all that here. But then as she goes along in this process, she's going to be a big figurehead. It's almost like Ravel is getting a little bit, older in her career, give her a spark and the staff, but then also bring more attention to Nebraska softball, which I think will hopefully keep a lot of, because Nebraska has a lot of talent in as far as softball and volleyball. Keep them here, and then you never know what happens after college is over. But I think it's huge because if every game isn't sold out, it's going to be dang near sold out because I know I'm going to go watch. My brother-in-law was a big club coach, so he I've heard about her. I got to see her play pitch one time, and I was like, dang, I always thought like, this girl's this good, nobody can get a hit. Like, you can't just you can't just bunt or do something, but she is that good. I'm sure they're pretty excited over there. So it's a big week for Husker women's sports. But then on the men's side, you got 2 transfers, commit to the Huskers. So that's good for, Fred Hoiberg and company. But then on the football, which we're talking about inside the huddle, it just completed Friday Night Lights, which was really good. You had a little bit of a, I wouldn't say scare, but a little bit of a speed bump with the weather, which, that's fine. But in Nebraska, you always adjust, and then it just delayed it a little bit. And then they had a ton of visitors, which is great. So they had visitors that I think the prior weekend as well. Had one offer to a 2024 Omaha North wide receiver defensive back. So that letting you know that they are looking to stack the cupboard, for years to come. And then I think the big news coming out of it is, I think at the beginning of the week, Harrison, give me your opinion. I felt the Elite 11 with Daniel Kalen going there, it was kind of like, okay. I think, it was great when he committed, because everybody, you watch it, if you followed his career, or not his career, but his process, you heard about him, but then he went and got the Florida State offer.
Yep.
The Nebraska quarterback coach liked him, offered him. Somebody higher up was mad, so then they kind of had to yank it back, which is weird to me because it's like 3 years prior. I mean, he could just change his mind. And of course, for whatever reason, the higher ups were trying to get this dude to walk on. I just imagine that. And then so he's, stayed the course, finally starting on varsity, lit it up, committed to Missouri. We're fast forwarding here. Mickey and those guys, kind of, kept him on the hook. Matt Rule was, I think, completely honest with him with the recruitment of Raiola and him, which allowed him to recommit to Nebraska after Raiola decided to go to Georgia. And then he got the Elite 11 invite, which didn't get a lot of publicity, but there's so much other stuff going on.
How
right?
many do they invite to that Elite 11? Is it 20? Or how many?
I don't know.
On the final day, I think they get it down to 20. I can't remember how many it is to start the day.
Yeah, I think I would imagine it's about 30, and it's like 12 of them was like, you can get your bag lunch and head back to the airport. But anyways, he was, officially at Elite 11.
Yeah.
So what that lets you know, and I think, Trent Dilfer was running it before, but they have a host of NFL quarterback, I guess, gurus or trainers that, train these kids all the way from middle school, high school, college, and then some end up on the pros, and he made it. Yeah, I think with him, he's a really good athlete. Probably obviously needs to get a little bit bigger, but the ability to throw the football. I'm tripping. I keep thinking about basketball because I keep looking at these commits. Is gonna I think pop early, and I think one thing that I really like about it, he's a product of obviously Bellevue West, but in the summer or spring and summer, he is coached by Steve Warren, who's a former Nebraska player, black shirt. He has the Warren Academy, and every quarterback that has done well and kind of went on to the next level is a product of the Warren Academy. They have extremely, really good coaching, some college coaches, but as quarterback development, they're running concepts in the spring and summer and through their training sessions to get these guys ready to do some of these things like this, right? And so you think Zane Flores or Flores went there. I mean, just from Steve Warren, obviously Gretna did a really good job. Steve Warren, 7-on-7 with Steve Warren on a national level, beating up on teams from all over the country. He gets it. Now Kalen comes. He actually makes the final 11. And so you got to think Zane Flores was a record-setting quarterback here and probably one of the best throwing quarterbacks that we've had. Well, Noah Walters was really good, but I'm saying, as far as national exposure, he goes to Oklahoma State. You think Gundy, quarterback guru, and here comes this kid, with 1 year starting experience, leapfrogs that. So you got to think that, getting him from Missouri was one thing from the SEC. Another thing is he's continued to progress along the development. So I want to give him big shouts out because I think he's bringing what I don't think he knows, but what people don't also recognize is that he brings a spotlight to the state of Nebraska. He brings a spotlight to whatever other skill position, lineman or whatever, because they're, these college coaches think, well, dang, they got this quarterback here. Let's go see what else they got. Now, we know we got the Nelson kid that's a tight end. I see they just offered, I think, a Elkhorn North kind of tight end, kind of hybrid. I mean, there's a ton. They got a Papillion tight end that they have offered and trying to get him to, stay with his commit here. And there's a ton more. And so I think it's a really good thing overall. But for him, I want to give him a ton of kudos because, putting yourself out there on a national level takes a lot of guts. And then going out there and perform against guys that he's probably compared himself to for the last couple of years. A lot of guys that were thought of probably ranked a lot higher than him, just based on where they're from or maybe their experience. And he beat out some guys. So I think it's something that he can always hang his hat on, but not obviously rest his laurels. So you want to give him props. Now back to the Friday Night Lights. I think, one thing I think Steve Sipple from 93.7 The Ticket, and I think On 3 wrote an article how the Wyoming staff was here, maybe checking it out. And I think Craig Bowl said that essentially it was one of the best run camps he's been to, kind of reminiscent when Coach Osborne was here, and Matt Rule was extremely engaged with everybody.
That's what I was hearing. You weren't just dealing with Matt Rule's assistant coaches. Like if you went to that camp and he thought you were fast, he'd pull you aside and be like, hey, let me see a 40 real quick. Like think about that. That put you on the spot right there. You're on Matt Rule and he's telling you like, hey, come run this 40. It was very direct engagement with the coaching staff.
Yeah, and I know, they always say like the recruiting gets an uptick, when the new staff comes. I mean, we saw it with Frost and them. But I think it's a little bit different here. They seem like they have a plan. They've done this, but Matt Rule's done this before, and he's not new to the game of recruiting. He's got.
Do you think that's because of the spot we're in too? Like, if we can just pluck one guy out of this, like that's why we got to be all hands on gaze, just because of where we are right now.
Sure. Well, you got to be open to it, number one, because of where we're at. But then also, this is your job.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you don't know who could come to your camp. You don't know what the dynamics of a kid. He might be, a baseball and basketball player, and he hasn't been able to do 7-on-7. You know what I mean? In his community, right? And so he comes to a camp, and he's a heck of an athlete. If you aren't on, right? If you aren't doing it for the right reasons, he could fall, slip through the cracks. And then next thing you know, you see him on a Saturday and you're playing against him. And then now you end up with like a Joe Burrow situation or Ott situation long before your time that end up going to Iowa and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of both. But there's also, I think, the experience of the staff of now, right, wrong, or indifferent, whatever you think about, they're out there, at a high magnitude in social media and stuff like that. But they're actually actively recruiting kids and getting them to come down to camp. And the reason why I know is because I, through the Foreman Football Academy, I trained Caden Cheddock from Lincoln East, and he's kind of mid-level Division I right now, but he's had a really good spring and summer as far as the camps. They wanted to make sure he came down to Friday Night Lights, so they're reaching out to any and everybody. They want to see everybody because you never know where or what somebody would be a couple years from now. And that, I think comes from his experience in college, but then also his experience in the NFL. Because say I am Matt Rule / head coach GM, when he was in for the Panthers, and Harrison, you're a, let's just say linebacker or whatever, and you're from, Nebraska, Missouri, or, whatever, Wayne State, and we're sitting in a pre-draft, meeting, we got a write-up on you, and say you come from a small school, or just say, Harrison, he needs to get 15 pounds, or he needs to do this or whatever. Well, then you get drafted, and somehow you start playing, and then obviously you're if you're coming off an injury, or you just continue to get better, well, then you hit free agency in year 3 or 4. Now, granted, Matt Rule wasn't afforded this, but you hit it year three or 4, then next thing you know, you're a totally different player than I met with at the combine or at your pro day. It's no different when they come to camp. You keep a file on everybody because you don't ever know what they had in high school. They might not have a good weight program. They might not have off-season 7-on-7. They might have a high school culture to where season's over in November or whatever it is. Well, see you in August.
Yeah, you're hanging out all
versus
summer.
A kid that's, okay, football's over. They might have spring, football. They might have their own winter conditioning, summer, where they're going to show up ready. But they're already almost at their ceiling versus say, Harrison or somebody like that. So, I think the staff is doing a good job, of doing that. And I think the staff, I know for a fact, once Mickey took over that staff with Bill Bush, they did a really good job of that, of really going out and knocking on doors and stuff like that, even during bye week. I mean, it takes some big cojones to know that you're kind of I won't say lame duck, but on a hot seat. You got to really exceed expectations and get on the road. Because I remember texting with Bill Bush, and he was on the way to Kansas or something like that. So
there was a crazy recruit. Right. Those guys, I will give them credit. The recruiting trail, those guys looked like they didn't take a break.
No,
I was impressed.
And when they all said that we're going to do what's right for Nebraska, their actions actually verified their words. So, look, it's a good Friday Night Lights and for them, and there's plenty of other kids. They got some young kids in, as far as the 25-26 class. I know you got Jay Jackson Jr. up there at Millard South. You got you got Will Anderson at Millard West, as far as quarterback position. So, I think the more exposure that these kids can get to this staff, and the more that exposure this staff can get to these kids and coaches locally in the high school level, I think will help Nebraska kind of, get back to where they'd like. So good inside the huddle on that, the first segment. Appreciate you guys getting up early on a Sunday, on a Father's Day. So, the regular Father's Day, getting up early and try to get stuff done. We're going to go to a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about what the staff and the players have on deck or should have on deck for the next 3 or 4 weeks before they take a break before camp. Jay Foreman, Inside the Huddle. We'll be right back.
Old School with DP and J.
I'll go back to the late great Wes Unseld, who always made these discussions based on meat. He would always,
because I was a big brother and
right,
he looked like
right,
he liked to eat.
Right, he
Yeah.
based it on meat. He would say, "Well, listen, there's a couple of the top choice prime plays. There just aren't that many. If you get a chance to eat prime, you eat prime. There are folks that would rather have New York, and then there are folks that, quite frankly, are good with hamburgers and hot dogs."
93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Our lives only have so much time. But if you smoke, you have less. Your life could be 10 years shorter. And the time you do have is often filled with health problems. Shortness of breath, asthma, COPD, and cancer. But the minute you quit, your body starts healing.
Call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Stories told by the families that live them with commentary from experts. Visit adoptuskids.org/podcast or subscribe to Navigating Adoption presented by Adopt US Kids. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Children and Families and the Ad Council.
I think it's just vapor.
Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
There's really not even that much nicotine in them, right?
One vape pod has as much nicotine as one pack of cigarettes.
My kid
knows it's dangerous. 5.4 million American kids vape, and most think it's harmless. Get your head out of the cloud. Talk to your kid about vaping. Visit talkaboutvaping.org. That's talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Don't let biased algorithms or degree screens or exclusive professional networks or stereotypes. Don't let anything keep you from discovering the half of the workforce who are stars. Workers skilled through alternative routes rather than a bachelor's degree. It's time to tear the paper ceiling and see the stars beyond it. Find out how you can make stars part of your talent strategy at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job,
not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
or a mother who's in between jobs and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner? Or a 14-year-old girl who signs up to every after-school activity, not to make friends, but just to get something to eat? Or a retiree who fell ill and had to choose
between getting medicine or groceries.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
This is how we do every day. We be grinding, and if you wanna come and text us,
if you love them enough to turn off your music and pretend like their music is your music,
this is Mommy's jam.
then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at NHTSA.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Mario fue pintor más de 30 años. Cuando me dijo que se le estaban olvidando las cosas, fue difícil. Un día me dijeron que pintara el marco del lado por dentro y pinté el lado de afuera.
Yo le diría a la gente que le diga a su familia lo que está pasando con él.
Si algo se nota diferente, podría ser Alzheimer. Es momento de hablarlo. Visita alz.org/nuestras historias para saber más. Un mensaje de The Alzheimer's Association y The Ad Council.
Back to the Ticket weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are back inside the huddle, second segment, in about another 15, 16 minutes. Ron from the text line.
Yeah,
happy Father's Day.
What's up, Jay? Happy Father's Day. And again, happy Father's Day to everyone out there. And if you want to join in on the show, Starter Heyman text line 402-464-5685, as well as you want to put a face to the voice, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, as well as Allo channel 951. So appreciate that, Ron. And again, feel free to chime in as the show goes on.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. And what we said, we were going to dive into what's next right now for this Husker football team. They're set 74 days before they play, which it seems like, excuse me, just yesterday, I think somebody was saying it was 98 days because they put up, a picture of Grant Wistrom. And you know what I'm saying? And so it's 74 days. They got it on here, 12 hours, 30 minutes, 35 seconds till they go up to Minnesota. But actually, to be honest with you, it's about 67 days because that last week the hay should be in the barn. And so in theory, it's only 2 months till you kick off and play a game, not 2 months until you report to fall camp. So as they're going along, what I guess fans aren't privy to, where you think about it, we just talked about Friday Night Lights. You still got some, whether they're official or unofficial visitors, I don't know, the rules change so much. Still coming through town. You'll hear about, from Steve Sipple, where they had a visitor in, and it'll be like an odd Monday or Tuesday. Well, what happens is if I'm leaving Notre Dame and I'm driving back to Colorado or wherever I'm from, I'll stop through and see Nebraska. So there's no time off for any of these coaches or staff. They might not be out on the road because of NCAA rules, but their road is to the stadium, and there's going to still a ton of activity with potential recruits. Now, what doesn't get noticed or written about is what's going on probably, well, not today because today's Sunday, but what happens tomorrow morning, what happens tomorrow, like evening, as far as their walkthroughs and 7-on-7s, individual work, and how they're able to progress or should have progressed since spring ball. They are well into their summer conditioning. I know they, reported officially like a week or two ago, but really they should have been on it even though they went home. And so, what's really, it's like three hats that let's just say the coaches and just put them all together, right? The biggest hat that you have to wear is the guys that are down there right now, right? Because that's how essentially you can hopefully sleep at night and get paid. You know what I'm saying? All hands on deck for Minnesota. The other hat is the kids that are going to be potentially in this new recruiting class, your first official one, right? Where you're able to, whole full cycle, right?
So is Dion not wearing that first hat?
Oh, Dion wearing his cowboy hat. Okay. Yeah, he's got a 20-gallon cowboy hat. And so then you're recruiting in, say, 24, right? And then you got 25. And so you're doing that. Then also there's a little window over there as far as keep an eye on kids that potentially could be in the portal for the December portal to open. I call it the vortex. And the reason why I say there's an interesting story out of Oklahoma, right? And their defense was poor last year, even though Nebraska didn't exploit it except for the first drive or two. They had a 4-star recruit, a defensive lineman. I think he was from Florida, probably recruited by the previous staff, obviously. Committed, came in early. And Oklahoma actually hit the transfer portal really hard, right? So he thought he was going to come in from high school. Dude, a lot of these kids think, I'm gonna graduate early from high school. I'm going to be that guy. I ain't got to walk. I'm cool. And so I'm going to show up, go through a little bit of, winter conditioning, spring ball, and next thing you know, you're going to see me starting. Well, here comes some guys that they had obviously got out of the portal or have gotten healthy or gotten a new opportunity. And now he's in the hardest weight program, or conditioning program that he's ever been in. It's probably the most mentally taxing as far as football wise. Now you're going to school, right? And then there's this thing called competition that a lot of these kids have not truly faced to this magnitude, right? So they're used to always, when they say, starting defense, he knew just natural. It wasn't that he thought he was better than anybody. He'd always walk to the front of the line. Now you're in the back of the line. And now you have to find a way to fight your way up a path that you've never done before. And so this is also what the staff is looking at because, he for whatever reason, which is probably the dumbest thing you could do, say that he's eventually going to go in the portal. Well, then why would I play you? Why would I put any time, resources in there? You don't want to be here, so then I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on you, even because I didn't recruit you fully for 2 or 3 years. Then you already got 1 foot out the door and half your body out of the door, so you're not even all in. And we haven't even we just barely got through spring ball. You don't know if 2 or 3 D linemen have become academically ineligible, get in trouble off the field, or get injured, or get like nicked up. Then next thing you know, I need you to play, and you're thinking about where you potentially could go, 6 months from now. So I think that's also, and then another part of it, re-recruiting your whole team right now, which I think is probably one of the most important things, and it's a different way you have to do it, because the conversations you have with potentially grown men, which older in their career, or people that have been here since the red alert, I call it the red alert change, when he came in, changing everything, the way they do stuff, is different than when I'm talking to a potential recruit. And being able to juggle that and be effective and authentic in that is a unique quality that a lot of coaches don't have. And so the best way, or if they do it the best way as far as the coaching staff, and they do it truthfully, you'll see a better result. But as they move forward to that August 31st, it is time. The pressure, I always say like this, I equate it to when, there's a lot of space, like if you're just walking, right?
Right.
But then every step, it's a day closer to that game at Harrison. Fortunately, the way they worked this in the offseason here in Nebraska, I don't think I ever showed up not prepared, but I've seen guys come in not prepared. And I always look at them, I was like, man, it feels like you ever have somebody walk too close to you in your peripheral?
Yeah.
That's what I think it feels like when you're not prepared. And that's the pressure.
Oh, it's
right?
Week 0 Thursday too. You're going on a weird day,
and it's the anxiety of thinking back, like, did I really give all my all in that February workout? Was I one of those guys that did just enough, and then I had other things that I thought were important, and especially if it doesn't work out for you in fall camp, or if somebody looks like they've put in more work than you, because everybody has an opportunity, the same opportunity. There isn't anybody on this team, obviously, even something small where they, weren't giving, guys single numbers. Nobody has any. You're not grandfathered into starting. You're not grandfathered into. We don't have anybody anointed as like all Big Ten first team. So, there's an old saying not old saying, it's new because Nick Saban's still around. The pain of discipline is definitely worth dealing with the pain of regret, because the pain of discipline is short term. The pain of regret lasts a long time. And I never forgot that. And Coach Osborne used to tell us in different ways, but obviously, it is true. And so it'll be interesting to see, who exercises this discipline, both in the players and the roster and the staff, in order to get improvement. Because as much as people want to write about all the, they need, more depth on the offensive line. They need to maybe another tight end. Well, ain't nobody's coming.
Yeah, we need that development at this point.
Well, at this point, if I'm on the roster and say I'm the 4th team tight end,
right,
I'm not looking over my shoulder, thinking about looking on, on 3 or waiting for a tweet to saying, here comes Harrison, and he's a 5-star recruit that just decided to come to Lincoln, Nebraska, of all places, right? You just left Notre Dame as the number 1 tight end, decided to come here. That's not happening. So what you need to do is focus on what you can do day in and day out, and it's every day too. So even like today, if I'm a young kid, you could call up, obviously whoever the father figure or not, you need to be doing something to gain an edge, to solidify your spot. Because there's one thing which is be interesting too, Harrison. I want your opinion of this. Is coming into camp. It's I always say like this: you go through winter conditioning, it's kind of like, okay, we got through it. I didn't understand the off-season program. Then spring was different. Okay, we got through that. You bond a little bit. Okay, but I'd say that's playtime. That's like a play date. There's no pressure.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what I mean.
You're in the weight room, but like you just don't feel like the hallway. You don't feel that pressure.
Right. Now we're starting to play for keeps. Now, as you get closer, the play date has changed. Now you actually have to go to bed on time. Now we got to make sure that you clean your room and stuff like this. I'm equating to being a father, right? Also, generally, Nebraska would a team like Nebraska in a regular year when we're actually significant, we would probably start the game or the season at home, right? So that means everybody dresses. We start our first 2 games on the road. So now it's a whole new type of competition because me and you might be, let's say just focus on tight. You might be the number 3 tight end, I might be the number 4, but I'm either number 1 or number 2 on special teams, right? You probably might have had a better camp than me as far as like, catches and stuff like that and more opportunities, but I'm on that plane.
Yeah, but I'll be sitting home.
You'll be sitting at home
for 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks because they only can take 85.
Yep.
Right. So maybe I can play tight end. I can play a little bit of fullback. I can play front line on kickoff return or fullback on kickoff return. I am the, well, in this case, you'd be on if you're the long snapper, but say I'm the backup long snapper, or I can play every position on punt team. I'm really good at punt hold up. And to say for you just say, hey, you know what? I don't think I need to do that. Right. So that is huge too. Because as much as everybody likes to focus on the position that they're playing, you better get real close with Foley and see what he wants and his expectations are, because his role as a special teams coordinator is just as significant as White and Satterfield. It is, because he's so huge in the roster management, and it's going to be paramount when they play the first game. Because let's just play devil's advocate. Just say he decides to keep Jay Foreman, or just say he has affinity for another safety.
Okay.
And he goes up there and say in the locker room, I was like, Harrison's probably just as good or better than him, right? Say, and you see this sometimes, say you're a redshirt sophomore, junior, and you kind of been, I wouldn't say passed over, but looked over, right? And they always, the younger guy. Well, the younger guy goes up there and dookies down his pants up there in Minneapolis and Dinkytown, right? And makes a couple mistakes. Well, those couple mistakes could cost us that first game. Those couple of mistakes, he could get a whiff of the contact smoke up there in Colorado and decide to run the wrong way, and the dude runs right through the way that he's supposed to be. Those are the decisions that could play out in this first, and it could work in the positive.
We saw it in Illinois. Now, Camp Taylor Britt made it up throughout the rest of the season, but remember that first special teams blunder.
Right. But all the guys that were here in Lincoln were like where we were watching the game.
Yep.
You had a few guys on their couch thinking I should be there, but none of them took the responsibility, said, you know what, did I catch enough, punts and really be the punt returner that I needed to be, not just in fall camp, right? Because fall camp should just be an extension of what you did in February.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be a really good punt returner, right, or just anything, you think you just start working and, you need to be doing this in January. You should be finding ways. You always see the things. I saw Tyreek Hill when they had him punt return when he was younger. And you see a lot of this in the NFL, and you see it sometimes in college. And I've seen Bill Bush do it with a couple of guys as well. I'm sure Foley does, where you'll have a returner catch balls until, he'll catch 6 balls, right? Those are things you need to be doing day in and day out. And so it's the discipline that these kids need to have in order to be successful. So they are I always equate things because I love the Game of Thrones, right? And so it's like if they were trying to go from one continent to another and they didn't know, right? And they always had these storms and they would come from the supposed gods and all that. So it starts out great, right? They give you a celebration. That's spring, right? And then the other side, getting to, say, Spain is beautiful, right? You're going south. But in the middle of that ocean, boy, it's a hurricane, right? And that's where they're at right now.
Yeah.
And who can really batten down the hatches and go, because it is huge to see what they can do to really step up. Who's going to be just okay with where they ended the spring, or, where they were at spring, and with the assumption that they were solidified. And then there's somebody's coming out of the shadows. The big thing we'll talk about in short in the next one, and we talked about it on Old School with DP. DP wouldn't give me an answer, but I tell you what they need to do is Chubba Purdy and Heinrich Haarberg. I mean, if that's not the biggest story day in and day out, then they're not covering it right. I think the offensive line will be better just by play calling and continuity. The defensive line is going to be all based on effort and who gets in the best shape of their life. You get Ty Robinson coming back. Judy should be healthy. Nash should be continue to get in better shape. And then the young guys, right? And then the defense is kind of like Tony White said, look, I don't need you to go A and B and look good. I just need you to get to C. So I want guys to make plays. that backup quarterback discussion, what we're talking about here in short, is going to be huge because that's going to really set the temperature for the whole program and the team. Not that he's going to play a big role, but who has stepped up throughout what I said from spring, summer, fall workouts. Jay Foreman, Inside the Huddle. We'll be right back after a short break.
On the Block with Strick and Austin.
The other part of this that I think is going to be on Jordy Ball's plate, fair or not, is peer recruiting, especially in-state recruiting.
Yeah. I became the recruiting face for Nebraska. Like pretty much whenever there was somebody that they wanted, they would send them to me because there's nobody that can sell Nebraska like somebody who has been to Nebraska or lived in Nebraska.
Weekdays from 2 to 4 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Getting experience to jumpstart a meaningful career can be difficult, and education can cost a fortune. Luckily, AmeriCorps can be the solution. With AmeriCorps, you'll earn a stipend and education award while helping people. Plus, you'll gain professional skills and make connections to help you build your career. If you're ready to start a career you can be proud of, visit serve.nebraska.gov/service to find a program for you. Paid for by Serve Nebraska, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Nebraska State Veterans Homes are here to serve veterans, their spouses, surviving spouses, and Gold Star parents. Join your fellow veterans and their families at one of our homes in Bellevue, Kearney, Norfolk, or Scottsbluff. With a sliding scale to determine your financial contribution, an excellent clinical team, and plenty of fun activities, our homes are the perfect retirement choice. Learn more at veterans.nebraska.gov/homes. Sponsored by the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide or experiencing a mental health or substance use crisis, call 988 for free, confidential, and compassionate support. On July 16th, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is transitioning to 988. There is hope. For 24/7 support, call, text, or chat 988.
Sponsored by Nebraska DHHS, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
Veterans, do you know what local, state, and federal benefits and services you're eligible to receive? Do you want help navigating the application or appeals process? Speak to your county veteran service officer or the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs State Service Office to see what's available to you and your family. You've served our country, now let us serve you. Visit veterans.nebraska.gov today. Sponsored by the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
My simple solution to the problem was remove people from the scene and help them feel safer.
In response to attacks against Asian Americans, Maddie Park raised over $250,000 to donate cab rides to the Asian community.
There is so much more work to be done. We really need to come together and tackle this issue as a community.
Support the Asian community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those round trips, which are perfect on your way there and perfect on your way back? Or those meetings with friends, surprise parties, camps, birthdays. The same way you plan for the important moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Back to the Ticket weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are back. Jay Foreman inside the huddle. Went by quick, man. You know what, Harrison? We might have to extend this, man. We might have to figure out how to do double duty, triple duty, or whatever. It goes by quick, but appreciate the support. Appreciate you getting up. 22 views on here. Got 1 like, but also be on the lookout. We got some sponsorship news. We'll be on the next show. We'll probably record maybe 1 or 2 this week because Harrison informed me we could drop some knowledge during the week as well. So Fortunately, maybe unfortunately, you're going to be seeing this ugly mug on the YouTube stream more times than not. But I don't want to. Hey, I don't want to not respond to my man Mark Lund from Houston, Texas. He said not to get off the subject, but what does Jay think about the Texans this fall? I think they're going to look. First of all, D'Amico Ryans is one of the true best leaders ever to step foot through the doors, the Houston Texans. And his story is pretty cool. That obviously he was a great player in college, but he was one of the ones, kind of like Matt Rule, came in. Nick Saban came in, wanted to change the culture, made it extremely hard. Talk about him and Harper, that obviously played, a lot of years in the NFL. Those two kind of stuck it out. Roman Harper. But D'Amico Ryans, Nick Saban talks about like he is one of the guys that foundation members, and obviously was a second round pick. Had a great career in Houston, went off to Philly, got hurt a little bit, and has really just ascended up the coaching charts, right? And I think his leadership as a player, his knowledge, and his credibility as a teammate allowed him to start from kind of an intern, then to go linebacker coach, defensive coordinator, then obviously being associated with the Shanahan when he was an offensive coach for Houston. But he knew what type of player he was and what type of person he was because he saw him in the locker room, saw him work day to day. So that's for you high school athletes, both female and male, is that, look, what you're laying the foundation for your long-term success right now. So speaking of that, I think the biggest subject I would probably implore a lot of the, I guess, local media to really, I wouldn't say focus on it, but it is something to focus on. And then, now granted, Jeff Sims is going to be under a tremendous amount of pressure in the spotlight because he's never played at a university like this, and you can't fault him for it. He didn't come to Nebraska right away. He hasn't been here. First of all, when Nebraska's been successful, right, which he's expected to do. He's expected to help with that. But number two, being in Georgia Tech, walking out to a game like he's never done this before, and so it will change your body, the way you operate. So of course there's a lot of pressure on him, but obviously he's going to be the day one starter. The backup is huge because I think he's an extension of, this is just my opinion, and this is the way I looked at offensive personnel when I was playing. He's an extension of, well, of course, the head coach, but primarily the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, starter. The backup is extension because a lot of times the backup is his eyes and ears and sees things from a sideline perspective, right, and it is the great teammate to help him be better. So you have to be selfless, right? You can't be selfish. So those are the things, that's going to be really interesting because you just don't know how somebody will react to being a backup. Are they okay with it? I mean, I'm sure they have to have some sort of realistic view that they're not going to be starting next year, right? Both from experience and from what Jeff Sims has showed the coaches during spring ball. Now, can you embrace being a backup without embracing being average and just being okay with being a backup? Now you have to be able to create internal competition, not only with yourself, but with, in this case, Harburg and Purdy, Harburg. And then also, once you kind of hopefully solidify that spot, also within yourself, looking at Jeff Sims and saying, you know what, I'm going to make some ground on you. And so that's when, if your number is called, right, or just say, and it's no different. I remember last year when I think Indiana game, whether you think it was too early or not, Casey was struggling a little bit, right? Mickey pulled him, right? Kind of slowed him down a little bit, and he said, Casey came in his office, said he didn't like it, but he made a decision. That could happen. Yeah, that could happen August 31st. You could get up there in his bright lights, and don't think they won't be cranked up. Listen. Dinkytown let me see what time the game starts. 7 p.m. August 31st. There's other games on, but those games don't really count. I mean, they're just kind of like bootleg games, right? It's like Meatloaf University against Cube Steak University. This is it, right? This is the Minnesota Open.
Bright lights.
Right.
People are gonna be watching Nebraska, Minnesota. And that's the game on a Thursday.
Nebraskans are number one as far as drinking beer. Wisconsin, I think fans are number two, right? Because they got Spotted Cow and all that other stuff, right? Minnesotans they will tell you they're ahead of Wisconsin, but just from my experience, they like to tailgate, and it's a night game, and it's on a Thursday, so they probably got off work, took off Friday. Oh, yeah. It's going to be rock. It's going to be pumped. And if you don't think PJ Fleck is trying to flex his muscle, welcome you to the Big Ten, and they're trying to get over the hump of winning the Big Ten West. I know his message is, hey, listen, we had control of the Big Ten West. We let it go, whether it was injuries or not. We didn't perform well. It's going to be a different atmosphere. So there's got to be all hands on deck. Again, travel roster, right?
Yep.
I know they got the emergency quarterback and stuff like that, but who can Marcus Satterfield depend on not only to be the backup quarterback, but to be an extension of the offensive play caller? Because when they come over and put on the headphones, it can't just be Jeff Sims. You got to have that whole room is in there together. It's not, you can't worry about how many reps you got in practice and you should be starting. You ain't starting. You get what I'm saying? So now the object and the purpose is we are winning the game. We are do anything and everything to win the game. And that's the discipline you have to have. And it's something that is very unique in every aspect of Husker football right now. Again, quick show, goes by quick. Big news next week. Appreciate you listening in. Got the healthy people coming in. I think I'm going to go enjoy myself with a Father's Day donut. I hope they're not listening. And we appreciate you listening. Inside the Huddle, Jay Foreman. Holler at you next week.